بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How are you, my students? I hope that you're happy and healthy and ready for today's lesson, which is Unit 3 conversation. So we'll be hearing two friends talk to each other about a specific topic. Of course, it's related to animals. We'll be listening to Umar and Sami talking about an animal. Because if you remember this theme's unit, this unit's theme is animals. So before we do that, let's revise what we previously took in the grammar lesson, the passive. If you remember the passive modals here, passive modals, structure, modal, be, and the past participle, like will be released, may be cancelled, parrots can be trained, and so on. So this is how we change them from active to passive. Then we took the passive with reporting verbs, to report if you want to say what someone else said or thought. It, then the passive reporting verb, for example, said or believed, then the word that, then the clause. For example, it is said that she is the leading expert on guerrilla communication. The second part, subject, like she or dolphins. Passive reporting verb, said or believed. To, you can see it here, to. Then the infinitive or the perfect infinitive. She is said to be the leading expert on guerrilla communication. Dolphins are believed to be the most intelligent of animals. We also took this language builder that why sometimes the writer doesn't say who said this. Again here, why doesn't the writer tell me who said these things? Sometimes statements like these are made when the speaker or the writer doesn't have support, the information, enough information, let's say, about the statement. So these are today's objectives: to employ the real talk in a short conversation, answer questions about the conversation. So look at the picture here of this animal. So, of course, you know what animal is this, right? Yes, of course, this is a horse. So, in the relationship between a man or a human, let's say, and an animal, who is the boss? Who is the leader in this relation, let's say? The relation between animals and humans. Who is the leader? Who is the boss? So, this is the first question here. Who is the boss in the relationship between the man and the horse? So, of course, the leader would be the human or the man. Have you ever tried to train an animal of any kind? It is an interesting question here. Have you ever tried to train, or you have ever trained an animal before, whether it's a horse, it's a cat, or any other animal? Have you ever tried to train or trained an animal before? If yes, then share this experience with your colleagues. If yes, how did you do it? Was it difficult? So when you share it with your friends or with colleagues, how did you do it? What did you do? And was it difficult or was it easy? But I think, of course, it wasn't easy. It was difficult. So you're going to hear a conversation in which one person is describing problems he is having with his horse. So someone is complaining. He's describing problems he's having with his horse. The other person gives him some advice. So the conversation is between two people. Someone who has a horse is complaining. He is having problems with his horse. And the other person is giving him advice on how to solve these problems. So now listen with your book closed. So listen with your books closed. So close your books and just listen to the conversation. We'll be listening to it again and be reading along. But now just close your books and just listen here to the conversation between Sami and Umar. And of course, it's about a horse. Let's listen.
Sami, I'm interested in speaking to someone about horse training. A friend of mine suggested I come here. Umar, what kind of problems are you having with your horse? Sammy, he's a beautiful, strong, and affectionate horse, but he's driving me crazy. He won't follow instructions. He will gallop instead of cantering. He won't turn when I need him to. And if he spots a patch of grass, he'll head straight for it and ignore me completely. Umar, I gather you have a young stallion. I will check the schedule and we can arrange training sessions for you and your horse. Hang in there. Sammy, okay, but in the meantime, I really need some advice. How should I handle him when he disobeys? Umar, well, I can try and give you a few tips now. You say he'll head straight for a patch of grass when he sees one. Do you let him do that when you are out riding? Sammy, well, sometimes, but only if I want to stop for a minute or so. Umar, you need to set rules and then stick with them 24/7. If you're not consistent, he's not going to learn. Sammy, okay, but when he is all friendly and nice, it's hard to not let him do what he wants. Umar, look, I'm going to get to the point. It sounds to me like your horse is calling the shots. You need to be firmer. If you train your horse not to do something, then suddenly let him do it. You'll be back to the drawing board.
So now that we have listened to the conversation between them, from what you heard, do you think that Umar is the problem is that he's too strict with his horse or not strict enough? So now that you have listened to the conversation between Umar and Sami, so do you think that the problem is that he's not strict enough or that he is too strict? So try to think of this question. And now we'll listen again and read along. Listen again. Now open your books. And while you're listening, try to read along. Let's listen.
Sammy, I'm interested in speaking to someone about horse training. A friend of mine suggested I come here. Umar, what kind of problems are you having with your horse? Sammy, he's a beautiful, strong, and affectionate horse, but he's driving me crazy. He won't follow instructions. He will gallop instead of cantering. He won't turn when I need him to. And if he spots a patch of grass, he'll head straight for it and ignore me completely. Umar, I gather you have a young stallion. I will check the schedule and we can arrange training sessions for you and your horse. Hang in there. Sammy, okay, but in the meantime, I really need some advice. How should I handle him when he disobeys?
So now you see in this part of the conversation, Umar is advising Sami what kind of problems you're having with your horse. He said in the beginning, he said he's a beautiful, strong, and affectionate horse, but he's driving me crazy. He's driving me crazy. He won't follow my instructions. He won't obey me. He's always disobeying me. He will gallop. Gallop means that when the horses run really fast, this is galloping instead of cantering. He won't turn when I need him to. When he wants him to turn, the horse won't turn. And if he spots a patch of grass, he'll head straight for it and ignore me completely. And when the horse sees a patch of grass, he will ignore Sami and go straight for the grass. Umar said, I gather you have a young stallion. So he said that the horse is still young. I will check the schedule and we can arrange training session for you and your horse. Hang in there. Try to figure out the meaning of hang in there because we'll see it later. Sami, okay, but in the meantime, I really need some advice. I really need some advice. So he's asking for help. How should I handle him when he disobeys? So when he, the horse of course, disobeys me, what do I do? How do I handle him? So let's continue the conversation here.
Umar, well, I can try and give you a few tips now. You say he'll head straight for a patch of grass when he sees one. Do you let him do that when you are out riding? Sami, well, sometimes, but only if I want to stop for a minute or so. Umar, you need to set rules and then stick with them 24/7. If you're not consistent, he's not going to learn. Sami, okay, but when he is all friendly and nice, it's hard to not let him do what he wants. Umar, look, I'm going to get to the point. It sounds to me like your horse is calling the shots. You need to be firmer. If you train your horse not to do something, then suddenly let him do it. You'll be back to the drawing board.
So here in the second part of the conversation, Umar is saying, well, I can try to give you a few tips if you want. He'll say, would you head straight for a patch of grass? You say, he'll head straight for a patch of grass when he sees one. Do you let him do that when you're out riding? When you're out in the wild riding, do you let him go to eat a patch of grass or not? So what did he say here? Well, sometimes, but if I want to stop for a minute or so. That's when Umar, you think that Umar is getting really mad here. You need to set rules and then stick with them 24/7. So he's saying you don't have rules. You have to set rules, then stick with them. If you're not consistent doing things all the time, he's not going to learn. If you're not consistent with your horse, because one time you're saying to him it's not allowed to eat grass, and the other time you say it's allowed, this is not consistent. If you're not consistent with him, he will not obey you. Sami said, okay, but when he is all friendly and nice, it's hard not to let him do what he wants. So Sami here is being affectionate, emotional. He said, when he is all nice and friendly, I have to obey him. I want him to do what he wants. Then you can look at the tone here. Umar said, look. Then here you see Umar is being serious. Look, I'm going to get to the point. I'm going straight to the point. It sounds to me like your horse is calling the shots. Your horse is leading you, not the other way around. You need to be firmer. You have to be strict. Firm is strict. If you train your horse not to do one thing, not to do something, then suddenly let him do it, you will be back to the drawing board. When you tell your horse you can't do that, then later you let him do it. So you're going back to square one, going back to the drawing board. So this is the real talk here. Hang in there. Don't give up. When you say to someone, it's okay, hang in there, it means don't give up. Continue what you are doing. 24/7, all day and night, non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So 24, this is referring to the hours of the day, 7 to the days of the week, all day and night, non-stop, meaning 24 hours a day, each day in a week, 7 days a week. Get to the point. Be direct. Get to the point. When someone wants to tell you something and he began talking long things, he doesn't get to the point, you say to him, please get to the point. Be direct with me. So get to the point, to be direct. Calling the shots, when he said to him, it sounds like your horse is calling the shots. He is in charge. So someone who is calling the shots, he is in charge and making the decisions. So calling the shots means in charge. Back to the drawing board, to have to start a process over again from the beginning. Back to the drawing board, going back to the beginning, or as they say, back to square one. So who says each expression and why? Hang in there. Who says hang in there and why? Yes, Umar says this because he's encouraging Sami not to give up on the horse. Now, with classes, the horse will improve. He's saying to Sami, don't give up, hang in there, your horse will improve. 24/7. Who is saying 24/7 and why? So again, Umar means that Sami needs to make the horse follow the rules all the time. He's saying to him 24/7, the horse has to obey the rules. He can't make any exceptions. Get to the point. Is it Umar or Sami here? Yes, Umar is going to say what he thinks right away without delay. He said, I'll get to the point, when he got a little bit mad. Calling the shots, when he said, it looks like your horse is calling the shots. So Umar means that in the relationship between Sami and the horse is in charge, not the other way around. Back to the drawing board, again, Umar. So all of these, Umar said them, means that every time Sami lets the horse break a rule, he'll have to start training all over again, back to the drawing board. It means back to the beginning. So work with a partner here, work with a partner to practice the expressions. You can ask and answer questions such as the following. So work with your friend, with a partner, to practice these expressions. You can ask and answer questions such as the following. So read the questions with your friend or your colleague just to exercise these expressions, and ask and answer also each other. When would you tell someone to hang in there? What's the occasion when you want to tell someone, hang in there? When do you say to him? When do you say this to him? What things in our town are open 24/7? In our town or city, what things in our town are open 24/7? Do you like it when people get right to the point, straight to the point? If you have a pet, who calls the shots in the relationship? You or the pet? Can you think of a time when you had to go back to the drawing board on a project? So, do you remember a project that you had to go to square one in the beginning? Can you think of a time when you had to go back in the drawing board on a project? And jumping on to about the conversation questions here, what problems is Sammy having with his horse? So, what kind of problems is Sammy having with his horse? You can get back to the conversation if you want. So, what problems is Sammy having with his horse? So, his horse doesn't follow instructions, will gallop instead of cantering, and won't turn when he needs him to. So, he's being disobedient. So, his horse doesn't follow instructions, he is galloping instead of cantering, and won't turn when he needs him to. What advice does Umar give him? So he asked Umar for advice, and Umar gave him advice. What advice does Umar give him? So he said, yes, he tells him that he needs to set rules and stick by them. He told him, you have to set rules and stick by them, and you have to be strict, you have to be firm with the horse. Number 3, how does Sammy respond to Umar's advice? So when Umar gave him this advice, how does Sammy respond to Umar's advice? When Umar told him to be strict, to set rules and stick by them, what or how does Sammy respond to that? So the answer is, Sammy says it is hard not to let his horse have his way. He said it's hard not to have the horse have his way. So jumping to your turn part here, role play with a partner. Tell your partner about a problem you're having in school or in your personal life. Describe the situation and ask for advice. So role play with your partner, ask him for advice, tell him a problem you're having maybe at school or personal problem in your house, and ask your partner or friend or colleague for advice. So here's in the chart, you can see asking for advice and giving advice. If you want to ask for advice, you say, what do you suggest I do about it? Or you can say, what do I do about it? What do you suggest I do about? Then you can say your problem, or you can say it. Could you advise me on the problem I'm having? I really need some advice on the problem I'm having. How should I handle it when? Then you can tell your problem. How should I handle it when I'm having a specific problem? This is here what you say when you are asking for advice. Giving the advice here, I advise you to, or you can say I strongly advise you to. You can say I advise you to, or you can add an adverb here, I strongly advise you to do this or do that. If I were you, if I were in your shoes, if I were in your place, I would do this and that. So this is some kind of giving advice. If I were you, I would not speak to him, for example. If I were you, I would go to apologize. It would be a good idea to, Or you can say it would be good to apologize to him. It would be a good idea to apologize to your friend, for example. It's not a good idea to not apologize, for example. It's not a good idea to. Or you can say it's not good to. So a and idea are optional. So which phrases are used in the conversation here from asking and giving advice? Which phrases are used? Yes, very good. Sami says, I really need some advice. How should I handle it when? He said, I really need some advice. Could you advise me? I really need some advice on. So he said, I really need some advice. How should I handle it when? So this is the asking for advice used in the conversation. And with that, we reach the end of this lesson. See you next lesson, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.